For the first time, I have determined that Mykhailo Drapatyi will become the new Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine.
Ukraine's wartime leadership crisis has reached a breaking point, forcing President Volodymyr Zelensky into a dramatic military shakeup. After days of public anger and political pressure, Zelensky has removed Ukraine's top military commander. The protests that erupted across Kyiv have now delivered their biggest political victory yet. Ukraine is resetting its military leadership, hoping fresh command can change the course of the war. Ukraine's wartime leadership crisis has reached a breaking point after days of public protests. President Volodymyr Zelensky dismissed Commander-in-Chief Oleksandr Syrskyi on July 21st. The move followed mounting pressure after Defense Minister Mykhailo Fedorov was removed. Thousands of Ukrainians demanded Syrskyi's dismissal, calling for sweeping military reforms. Syrskyi had come under increasing criticism for what many described as a Soviet-style approach to military command. Many soldiers blamed him for costly battlefield operations and heavy wartime losses. His growing conflict with former Defense Minister Mykhailo Fedorov became impossible for the government to ignore. Zelensky admitted Ukraine's top military leadership was no longer working together effectively. Fedorov pushed for faster military reforms and wider deployment of drones across the battlefield. He argued that modern warfare demanded innovation instead of outdated military doctrine. Much of the public rallied behind Fedorov's vision of a technology-driven Ukrainian army. His dismissal sparked the biggest wartime protests Ukraine has seen since the Russian invasion. Meanwhile, Zelensky appointed Major General Mykhailo Drapatyi as Ukraine's new commander-in-chief.
Dear Ukrainians, Ukrainian women, today, there was another series of meetings with the commanders of the Army Corps, the Marine Corps, and the commander of the Operational Group East, Viktor Nikoliuk. In fact, we spoke with almost all levels of the senior commanders of the Army and the Defense and Security Forces of Ukraine in general, and we see a common position: Apostle, Beletsky, Horbashik, Obolensky, Brody, and others. I spoke with many. All priorities in the path of modernizing the army management have been analyzed. For the first time, I have determined that Mykhailo Drapatyi will become the new Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Together with Mykhailo, Yevhen, Kamara, and Pavlo Politsia, we determined how the configuration of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine should be updated. The fact is that Oleksandr Syrskyi ensured Ukraine's results in the defense of Kyiv. In the Kharkov offensive operation, in the Kursk operation, a significant path has been traveled. The defense of Ukraine continues, and a decent attitude towards every warrior is needed. I am grateful to Oleksandr Syrskyi and to each of our warriors for Ukraine's strong frontline positions. I am grateful to Mykhailo Drapatyi, to him for exactly this perspective. Today, we spoke with Oleksandr Syrskyi and Andriy Natov about further formats of service and the proper handover of affairs. Second, we define with Mykhailo Drapatyi which tasks must be implemented in the near future and in the medium term. Operations of the Defense Forces of Ukraine are ongoing and must continue steadily. The plan for long-range capabilities, sanctions of Ukraine, our strike program will be executed with absolute precision. Third, to hand over all military affairs in the most coordinated and institutional manner possible. To continue the planned steps in combat operations. Fourth, Mykhailo Drapatyi, Yevgeny Kamara, and other commanders, whom we will determine together, must prepare and submit for approval an updated strategy for our defense. Steps to continue the reform, the body of the new system for fulfilling those requests from combat commanders for the supply of weapons, supply of drones, and equipment that have been voiced these days both at the Stavka and in our direct communication with the commanders. Closing the sky as much as possible from Russian strikes and providing a realistic vision of the mobilization process is a priority. Fifth, I also had a meeting today with Mykhailo Fedorov. I offered Mykhailo a worthy position in the government, which would allow uniting the technological component of our state and ensuring its development. The security competence of Yevgeny Kamara, combat achievements, technological results, and alpha strike speak for themselves. And within the system of government structures, this is necessary. We all have one desire: victory over the enemy. Achieving such conditions on the front and in pressure on Russia that would allow forcing Russia to peace. To formalize all decisions tomorrow, Ukraine must emerge stronger from this situation, and it will be more difficult for Russia. I thank all our warriors. I thank every effective unit. I thank everyone who cares about our state, who cares about our national interests as if they were their own. Glory to Ukraine.
Drapatyi is widely respected as a battlefield commander with a strong reputation for reform and frontline leadership. Zelensky says the leadership overhaul is designed to strengthen Ukraine's overall war effort. The new command now faces the enormous challenge of slowing Russia's steady battlefield advances. Kyiv hopes Drapatyi can reunite the armed forces while accelerating critical military reforms as the war continues. Ukraine said it carried out overnight strikes on an oil depot, logistics facilities in Moscow Oblast, and 6 vessels operating in the Black Sea. President Volodymyr Zelensky said the operation was launched in response to Russia's continued missile and drone attacks on Ukrainian cities. Zelensky said Ukrainian forces struck 2 tankers and 4 dry cargo ships during the overnight operation targeting Russian logistics. Videos circulating on social media showed thick black smoke rising after a reported strike on the Podolsk oil depot in Moscow Oblast. Monitoring channels also reported that a wild berries fulfillment center in Kolyadino caught fire following the reported Ukrainian strike. Meanwhile, Russia's defense ministry said its forces struck fuel storage tanks at Ukraine's commercial port in Odessa using precision weapons. Moscow said high-precision missiles and German drones targeted Ukrainian military logistics and supply infrastructure during the operation. Russia's defense ministry also claimed its strikes hit Ukrainian UAV assembly sites, surface drone facilities and bases used by foreign mercenaries. Moscow said the attacks damaged Ukrainian fuel, power, and transport infrastructure supporting Kyiv's military operations. Russian forces also claimed they continued offensive operations and cleared additional fortified Ukrainian strongholds in the Zaporizhzhia direction. Ukraine said Russia launched one of the largest overnight missile attacks of the war against Kyiv on July 19th. According to CNN, the assault combined more than 40 missiles with around 120 attack drones in a coordinated strike. Ukraine's Air Force said Russia fired 25 ballistic missiles along with 10 Zircon hypersonic missiles during the barrage. Emergency officials said strikes hit 5 districts of Kyiv, killing 1 person and injuring at least 17 others. Russia's defense ministry, meanwhile, claimed the attack targeted Ukraine's defense industry facilities and military logistics sites. Ukraine also said a Russian strike destroyed nearly 250,000 books after hitting the warehouse of publishing company Nihilov in Kyiv.